be a mathematician to program, you can use normal, words like multiply, add, that kind of things to string together a programming language. Thankfully for them, Captain Hopper had already had her project going on. She joined the group, and that's how COBOL was founded. So COBOL, um, the common business oriented language. That's when that was born. And so one of the overall one of the sentiments that happened during that time was they were saying that, okay, well, if now we take programming out the hands of mathematicians, and then business people and finance people can write their own programming languages, why the heck would you need developers, right? That was the question back in the day. And so there was a growing group that was getting concerned about, what was happening there. So what turned out was that the business folks weren't interested in writing code. They were interested in doing business stuff, and the mathematicians, they kept wanting to mathematize or whatever it is that they were doing, right? And so what happened was a new segment of development, came up, and so they created a brand new industry on accident. And so now a lot of the finance institutions, banking, all of that stuff, even today, still runs on COBOL. There's lots of programming languages that have come and gone. COBOL is just stuck around for the last 1,000 years. There's lots of people that are still doing COBOL. So it had the reverse effect what some people thought, right? So some people thought that developers were going to get crushed, by this particular technology. But what it did was it expanded who can now code, right? So it went from mathematicians to people who were a little less nerdy and could understand business, and then so those folks could start writing programming languages. All right, y'all remember the Prince song, 1999?
Party like it's night, yeah.
Yeah, Party Like It's 1999. And then the last part of that song, 2000 party over, oops, out of time. Remember that? The problem with that song is that 2000 came and went, and the world didn't end, right? And lots of people were, even back in 1999, it was Y2K was going to happen. Every computer on the planet is going to crash. There were people thinking literally the world was going to end. They made all kinds of bad decisions, and they sold their houses and their possessions and all this kind of stuff. And 2000 came, and they were stuck, right? And during this time, as you all know, the internet was popping, as the kids say, right? It was extremely popular. Everybody wanted to be a web developer. Like all the different programmers that are out there started to get into web development. They got into static pages, and everyone wanted to have a website. And the developers were dominating during that time, right? Lots of web developers were out there, and they were the ones controlling the web. In the early 2000s, you had different companies that started to spring up, like Wix and Weebly, and some of these other low code, no code platforms where you can basically drag and drop your way to creating a website. And I remember I have a friend of mine. His name is Ramaya Trask. Ramaya does not have a coding background at all. I don't think he's even said programming before this time, right? And he came up to me. I remember he called me up. He said, "Ron, you're in software development, right?" I said, "Yeah, I've been in it for a little bit." He was like, "Look, I'm thinking about starting a business, and I'm going to build websites for people." And I'm like, "Okay, well, what language do you use?" He said, "I don't know how to code." I'm like, "You don't know how to code? What? How are you making websites?" So he showed me the tools that he was making. I was like, "Ramaya, like, are you sure?" And ego was coming up, and I'm just talking to me. He was like, "You don't know how to code. You didn't go to school for this, and you didn't put in the reps and all this kind of stuff. And how do you think?" And all this. And Ramaya, I didn't say in this, Ramaya, right? But Ramaya's like, "No, I think I got it. There's a lot of people that have been asking about, creating a website, and I think I can do it. And I've done it a few times for some people already, and I think there's a business here." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So a couple years goes by. Now I'm talking to Ramaya. Ramaya is making six figures, making websites using these drag and drop tools for customers, right? And it turns out clients don't care what you use to build something, just as long as it works. And with things like with tools like Wix and all those other things like Wix, for instance, um, a while back had 25 million users, right? And there's still people that are using these tools today. And so what happened was the industry noticed that there are some use cases where you using these drag and drop components to build websites were perfectly fine. Someone who's doing lawn care, somebody who's doing XYZ project, whatever, it was good enough for them and it served their purpose. And turns out that some people were willing to pay for that. And what happened was during this time where these tools were coming up, same thing. Lots of web developers were wondering, well, if the average Joe on the street or average business person can now create a website without my help, without writing code, what does that mean for me? And then as time went on, JavaScript evolved to TypeScript, and you had all these different frameworks that started coming out. You have React and Angular and Vue and all these different component libraries and everything to help developers write complex code easier. The web developers, instead of focusing on the easy static web pages, they started migrating to more some of the complex use cases, right? So developers were still needed. The other interesting thing was about this time you started having mobile development start taking off, right? There were developers out there learning Swift and learning code that's native to Android. And someone had a great idea. They said, hey, what if we took some of the different components and the ways of building websites, right? Like React, for instance. What if we came up with a way where we can write code in React and we can compile that down to native iOS and to Android? And so web developers who didn't really have experience in mobile design, they could get into the mobile game because they could use the same techniques that they've used by using React and Angular and all those different things to now get into a different segment of business. So now you have mobile web developers who are now mobile developers. You have people that didn't know how to code before to make websites or building websites. So again, some of the sentiment was that the thought was here's the end of web development, but what happened was it just kept getting bigger, right? And there's more developers that's entering into the party. All right, and then the 2010s came around, and then you have no code platforms, right? I remember back in 2018, and I'll go into this story another time. I joined this competition. It's called Startup Bus. It's one of the craziest things I've ever done in my life. I don't know why I decided to do it, but I'm glad I did. Here's the whole premise. You join with you board a bus, so like a big charter bus. There's buses like all over the country. There's like 6 or 7. You join a bus with a bunch of strangers, and you form teams on this bus. The idea is from where you're starting to your destination city, and it's going to take about 3 days to get there. You go in a roundabout way. You have 3 days to build a working piece of software, get customers, and everything. And when I first heard about that, I was like, there is no way that we're gonna create a prototype, create working software in 3 days riding on the bus. And I can tell you, we did it with crappy Wi-Fi and coding at 2 o'clock in the morning in the hotels, and we did. And it opened my eyes to what was possible. One of the things that I found is that there's lots of tools out there that people use. I came across a tool called Zapier. Zapier, you've probably heard of it. It's a workflow platform, right? Anybody can go and create a workflow to do almost anything. Any SaaS product, any software out there that has an API, there's probably a connection for it in Zapier. So for instance, I could hook up Zapier to my email, and it's looking for emails that are coming in from my daughter's teacher. And if I see an email, if it sees an email that says, hey, Brian, there's a new field trip and you're going to have to pay $200 for this field trip, I can automatically say you need to pick another project because we're not doing that one, right? So then when these types of platforms came up, right? So Zapier and Make.com, if you remember IFTTT, if this then that, right? Same type of situation. Some of the thought was, well, if these platforms exist, and then people that don't know how to code can literally build any automation that they want, why do you need software developers, right? Well, it turns out, same thing. People that don't know how to code, they can definitely make workflows, right? So what's advertised is anybody can build these things, which is true. But what happened is some of these workflows became extremely complex, extremely convoluted. And when they got complex, or when somebody drag and drop their way into a corner, they ended up calling a developer. And it's interesting that the people that are best, that do the best with these type of platforms, happen to be software developers or former software developers, right? So again, the industry started expanding. There are some people today, they're embedded in companies. The only thing that they do is this, right? Same as like ETL tools, right? So this, like Zapier and Make, they're like a business person's version of an ETL tool, right? So same exact thing. There are people that are embedded in companies today. There are people that are starting startups today that need workflows, and they're using these types of things. And when things get complicated, which they invariably do, they ask for a developer to bail them out or to help them scale. All right. So, and there's several other examples that I'm glossing over, but it's been the same thing every time. There's some kind of revolution that comes in, and it's always and it threatens the existence of software developers. But what's happened so far in every case is that it's expanded the number of people that are coming to the table. All right, and so now it's the same exact thing. I remember back in 2022, November 2022, I remember exactly where I was, and ChatGPT came out. It was probably maybe the second day it was released, and I am losing my mind. And I called up Steve, and I said, Steve, man, you got to see this. You got to check this out now. I said, okay. I'm like, no, Steve. You got to stop what you're doing. If you're not delivering a baby or taking somebody to the hospital, you need to stop and check this out.
He literally did say that, by the way.
Yeah, I did.
Because I was blowing him off. I was like, I'll do it later. Nope.
So the more I started looking at this thing and realizing what was possible, I called up Steve and another buddy of mine, Darren. I said, look, guys, we're going to start a company. What's going to happen is in the next week, every software company on the planet is going to be an AI company. And everybody's going to say the same thing. Everybody's going to go through all the promises. Oh yeah, I can build this, and we can. Oh yeah, we have 3 days of AI experience. We can do all this kind of stuff. And I knew what was going to happen. Right, there was going to be this explosion of craziness. Right, some of it real, some of it legit, and a lot of it not. But you see the headlines, right? Coding after coders, the end of computer programming as we know it. AI writes the code now. What's left for software engineers? AI can wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs in 1 to 5 years. So we've been seeing two camps, right? It's either AI is the greatest thing since sliced bread, or it's like it's Terminator, right? Or like the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. All right. So here's what I'm seeing that's happening right now. We have a client at 3Works where he called us up. This guy is a lawyer. He has a law firm, and he does his business does a lot of like bankruptcy dealings. And that type of business is heavy on document processing. So they're going through bank statements and legal filings and all kinds of things, and they're trying to detect fraud and just all kinds of stuff. He has 3 to 4 people on his staff, and 20 to 25 hours of their week is spent combing through documents, right? Like literally going through line by line, trying to find stuff, like eyes glazed over, type of work. So Steve and I developed a platform for him where, we know exactly what he wants. So instead of 20 to 25 hours, for three to four people doing that work, our AI does that in a couple of minutes, right? And so we're working with him, and we're telling him about, how, you can develop with AI. And he dabbled in coding way back in the day, and so he's like, oh, maybe I can do it. So anyway, so after a few like a year or so, like working with him, we weren't even working with him for him to learn about it. He just got excited and started doing some stuff on his own. And so recently, he came up to me. He was like, "Hey, Brian, look, I got this software that I'm using to run my company, and ever since I bought it 3 years ago, probably 2 years and 11 months, I've been trying to like get myself out of it, right? Like I want to like rewrite this myself." And I was like, okay. So he takes off and starts doing that. And he calls me up. He's like, all right, Brian. So I think I got everything, but I'm stuck right now and I'm not really sure like how to get this like production ready. It's running on my computer and I don't want to turn it on and all my data yet, but this is like what I want. I want to call you guys in to bring this to production. And I'm like, okay, we can do that. Another example. Told you I'm working with at LSU online. I've been working with the engineers there to really get into AI assisted development. Um, as we're talking and teaching the engineers, how to use AI, I'm a huge fan of Cursor. Steve likes the terminal. He's working in Claude Code and Codex. I'm like, nah, I want to see a screen. I want to see a file. Let's just show me what you got. So anyway, we're going through the process of teaching them how to use this. And my product owner and my BA. Now they're in IT, but they have zero coding experience whatsoever. They had a task that came in, so a ticket came in, and the ticket said, "All right, there's a third-party system that we're using, and we need to update some of the pages for SEO optimization. And to do it, you have to touch every single program page, like an academic program, and there's hundreds of these things, right? And they calculated it out, and it would have taken them over 100 hours to do everything by hand. So what they did, they got together and they went to Cursor and just some of the techniques that we're talking about. They used RPA, right? So robotics process automation and plus some other code to automate that whole process. And that process that took 100 plus hours for a human to be able to do, again, it's not rocket science, but it's mind numbing activities that somebody was going to have to do, and they did it themselves. They created an automation that'll go through, click programmatically, click through the application, put the information in, save it, go to the next one. Has error handling and all that kind of stuff. They were able to protect the engineering teams from this, right? This came up out of nowhere. This was a last minute ask the business wanted to do, and they didn't tell us until like the 11th hour. And they were saying, oh, well, Brian, we can do this ourselves. So they decided to do that. They've done that. They've built other tools, and now they're coming to me and saying, "All right, Brian, so this thing over here that we built is really useful. How do we get other people to use it?" Another example of what I'm seeing. There's a lady that I met on LinkedIn. She's Sabrine Matos. She's in Brazil. She had an idea a few years ago um, to solve the issue of domestic violence in Brazil. Domestic violence rate in Brazil, I don't remember the number, but I remember she told me about it. It's like stupid high. It's crazy high. She had this idea for an app. It was a dating app. So people get together and they're like, "Yep, I'm interested in you and this kind of thing." And the women on the app can then do a criminal history check on all the guys, and they can see public. It basically goes through and searches public record. Does this guy have cases against him? Does he have charges? He has this and that. So they can build out a criminal history profile, and they can say, "No, thank you, sir. I saw what you did, to the last person. No thanks." And it took off because it was such a need. And she built that with Lovable, and Lovable is like a vibe coding app, right? Kind of like we were talking about the no code platform where you can drag and drop. This one is you have a conversation with, and it builds out an app. And she built it out to 10,000 users. She made $400,000 that first year, and she did it all by herself, zero developers. And she's when you get a chance, look her up. She's featured on the Lovable website, And about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I saw on LinkedIn she had advertisements out for developers. And in an interview, she talked about that. She was like, "Yeah, we vibe coded this thing out. We wanted to make sure we had a solid proof of concept. We have customers on it, but I can't scale this thing with level. Like I need developers to come in to really to bring this out." So that's another thing that I'm seeing, right? And again, it's the same patterns, over and over and over. And so the bottom line is what I'm seeing. Why I'm saying that software development is not shrinking. What I'm seeing today is that there are more people writing code than ever before. There are more people right now on planet Earth writing code than 5 years ago, than 3 years ago, than last month. More people are writing code. All right. So what's happening in the software space? Um, this is the job market and just software development in general. What people like to do a lot of times when they talk about software development, they lump it all together in this one broad category. But it's different. There's layers to software development. What we're seeing right now with large companies, so you look at like Meta and Block even and Salesforce and these huge tech companies, you're seeing a shrinkage in headcount. You really are. They're letting people go. They're downsizing quite a bit. Some of it has to do with COVID, right? Remember what happened with COVID, right? We were all at home, working remote. Software companies in particular went crazy with hiring. They hired a ton of people, and a lot of times they overhired. I'm not saying that everybody's still in that situation, but some people are still trying to make up for the overhiring that's happening in COVID, and they're letting people go. Some companies, some huge tech companies, they're not only using the AI from the different cloud providers like OpenAI and Anthropic and Google, but they have their own AI infrastructure. They have their own infrastructure, they have their own models, and it's very expensive to do that. Like if you're in the model game, it's an expensive game. And if you're doing that, what they're doing is they're trying to balance the cost of running the models. The easiest thing for them to do, unfortunately, is to reduce headcount, right? So some of these companies that have their own infrastructure and their models, they're getting rid of the developers to make up for the cost in AI. There's other people that are seeing legitimate, increases in efficiency in AI, and they're saying, well, you know what? Instead of 5,000 developers, we probably need like 3,000 developers. So that is real. Headcount is shrinking in those larger organizations. Software development exists beyond just the big companies, right? So most of you here don't work in a big high-fi tech company, right? You're working at, a Medisys or a Blue Cross, or healthcare companies or a finance company. Those aren't native tech hubs, right? But there are engineering groups, there's tech, there's IT inside those organizations. And what we're seeing is what I described to you earlier, right? Think about that example of my BA and my product owner, right? There are people who are not developers who are starting to code. There are people who are starting to lean into some of this AI assisted development work, and they're becoming more efficient, and they're being able to do more work. Startups typically have always been small. The difference is that these small startup teams, they're able to launch products now in a couple of weeks instead of like months and months. There's a local startup here in Baton Rouge. It's called Arc Hoops, and they came to me with this idea. They are teaching kids, middle school kids, data science through basketball. And they were like, "Hey, Brian, we have this great idea. Want to tell you about it. The problem is that we don't have anybody to code this up." And so I'm hearing about the idea and I get excited about it, and I'm telling myself, "Brian, don't commit to this. Don't commit to this." I'm like, "Yeah, Brian, this sounds really cool. Don't commit to this. Don't commit to this." And I'm listening to what they want to do, and they're literally trying to help. They're trying to help kids, and they have an awesome mission. And I'm just a sucker, right? I'm just like, okay. All right, I'll do it. And over the process of 6 weeks, um, a couple hours here on the weekend, an hour, Wednesday night, after the kids go to bed, I coded out their project. Like not vibe coded. It was, and I'll tell you a little bit about this later on. Legit engineered, as if I was doing it myself. It was high quality work, but AI did it, and it was just a few hours here and there over a period of 6 weeks. About 4 weeks ago, we did a pilot. We launched a pilot over at Park Forest Elementary, and it was a phenomenal success, right? And but yeah, and that was done through with AI. All right. So yeah, so smaller teams right now, smaller teams are winning. Now, when I mentioned to you, headcount is shrinking for sure. Also, new jobs are going to be created. Don't ask me what those are. I have no idea what that is. I just know that they're coming. How do I know that? Again, I'm looking back at history. You look at 20 years ago, nobody knew what a podcaster was. Nobody knew what a social media influencer was. Nobody knew what SEO optimization was, and CI/CD was just getting going. I remember when I was at a Medicis, we were doing releases by hand, right? I remember we had another Venkat who worked at a Medicis, and he was, I don't even know if Venkat was like a real human, because he did all the releases. Y'all know, he did all the releases for all the software that we did. There was like one guy. I have no idea how he did that. We didn't have a term for CI/CD back then, but that's what it was, right? So there are things that are coming, right? There are opportunities that are coming. I have no idea what they're going to be called. The one that I'm seeing right now is one of the ones that I was alluding to earlier, right? As people are starting to paint themselves in a corner with a lot of these vibe coded apps, they are looking for people that know how to legitimately build software to help get their project off of their laptop out into the world, right? How to help with the scale. So whatever that is, there's going to be a name, somewhere in the future. I have no idea, but there's going to be more as well.
AI therapist.
AI therapist. All right. So the interesting thing, right, is with AI, what AI is doing now, it is taking over how we write the code, right? Software development is more than just the code. Okay. How many times has one of your business stakeholders, come to you and like, hey, Steve, I want you to. I'll pick on Dwayne. Well, I'll tell a Dwayne story. Dwayne and I are working at a Medicis, and Medicis is a home healthcare company. And Dwayne and I share this room, and our cubes are right next to each other. We have a sticky note in between our desks, and it says automate timesheets. And we're like, automate timesheets? What are you talking about, automate timesheets? What they wanted this custom built solution that can go out and just automate everybody's timesheets in the company and just do all the finance and accounting things. But that's all we got is a sticky note, right? Like we can't do that, right? We can't work off of that. So Dwayne and I, this is back in the day where Medicis, where developers did everything. Dwayne and I were the BAs, and we were each other's therapists at the time, right? Talking through this stuff. We were the DBAs, we were the developers, we were the testers, and we were all the things. And all the time that we spent more time doing that than the coding. The coding was the easy part, but we had to figure out and understand what the heck they wanted to do. We had to talk to them, to the business owners about the exceptions and the weird edge cases and trying to figure out what we needed to do. We had to decide how we wanted to design these things. We had to make all those choices. Software development is more than just the code. How we code now is different, but software development is still the same. You still need experience writing software, right? It's different. There's a difference between vibe coding an app and using AI to engineer an app. Those are two totally different things. And the interesting thing about that, everyone in the room, if you have experience in a software team or working with software teams, you have such a big advantage over people that don't. Even if you didn't code or not, you could have been a BA just talking to developers and getting these ideas done, you can lean on your experience, on how to build software, to use AI to build software. And that experience helps you develop those instincts, right? I just had a conversation with an engineer the other 3 days ago. So at LSU, again, we're selling education, right? And we're selling degree programs. So you have computer science and marketing and underworld of basket weaving and all that kind of stuff. on the back end database, right? There's a code associated with all those different programs. So one of my engineers, they just mentioned in a Jira ticket that we have an item coming in and we're going to change this particular code. And as soon as I saw that we're going to change a code, my spidey senses were tingling. I'm like, what? Wait a minute, hold on. So I kind of been down this road before, and I'm gonna ask a question. Look, is this program code already in production? I'm like, okay, all right. So you can do that, right? But have we talked to the web dev team that depends on these codes being a certain way? Have you gone through every single system to make sure that you find every instance of this program code? Because maybe this program code has some kind of special case and it's hard coded, somewhere, right? And I'm like, look, normally I will advise not to do those kind of things. Just leave it. If it's in production and that code is there, you don't want to change that ID, right? And then she started kind of rethinking what she was going on, or what she was getting ready to do. But that was built up over time, right? Because I probably changed the code somewhere that messed something up, or one of my teammates did. But that experience, over time building software, those things translate right now. Like that doesn't go away. You still have to have those good instincts. A lot of people talk about taste. Like, what is taste, right? Taste is the ability to consistently make good decisions around software development, right? Another medicine story. I remember I had somebody who was poking fun at me a little bit at the way I was naming my functions, right? So let's say, for instance, I'm writing a method, and this method is calculating a patient health score, whatever, right? The name of my method is going to be calculate patient health score, and it's not going to be CPHS, right? And so taste it even goes down to how you're naming your methods. When you're writing your code, is your code written so that it's telling a story? So the next person that comes in 5 years later that's looking at it, can they easily go through and understand what it is that you are trying to do? Taste is choosing the simpler route instead of the complex route. I have people who like to do, I call it and one programming. Y'all remember the and one basketball mixtape stuff? And one was, the guys are doing like all the fancy tricks, and I want to pass the ball to Steve, but instead of doing this, I want to do this and turn back, make a backward flip, and woo, there you go, Steve. No, just hand the ball over to Steve, right? Don't do and one programming, right? So building up taste helps you make decisions like that. All right. So the main takeaway today is AI still needs software discipline, right? The discipline that you built up throughout your entire career, you can't forget about that. Like, you have to use that when you're developing with AI. This is the reason why you're still relevant. You're still going to be relevant, because I'm telling you, you've seen a lot of it. A lot of people are thinking they can go to Cursor or Claude Code and just say, hey, go build me a mobile app. It's a different day and age, right? When you learn these techniques and learn it right, you learn how to build out skills that the AI is going to follow. Those guardrails is going to make sure that the opinions that you have about how you write code will continue in the software, right? Not because the AI knows it. It doesn't know what you want, but you have to tell it. You have to guide what it is that you want to do. And there are ways and there's techniques to take that software discipline and train the AI to keep it in line. And the more you stick to those principles that you already know, right? Building small components, right? Knowing how to break work down into digestible chunks, being able to write code in a certain way, being able to design things in a certain way, right? The more you can instruct the AI to do that, the better results that you're going to get, from software. And there's a lot of people right now, unfortunately, they're not doing that. They are, throwing stuff to the wind, and they're blaming AI, saying, "Oh, my least favorite phrase now is AI slop," right? It's, they're throwing things to the wind, and they're hoping that AI figures it out. Like, no, there's an art and a science to this. Just like there were humans, they were writing crappy code. It's the same exact thing. AI can write crappy code as well. AI can also make incredible code, but you have to know what it is that you're doing. It's not just a license just to do whatever, and you kind of hope and pray that things work out. So yeah, so that is my hot take. Software development is getting bigger, meaning that there are more people that are coding. A year from now, there's going to be more people that are coding. How we code may look different, but there are going to be more people creating software. My 9-year-old can go to Claude and say, "All right, Dad, this is what I want you to do. I want you to make me a website to talk about the planets." And I'm like, "Okay." And I press the microphone button. "All right, okay, you go ahead and talk." And she says it, and then Claude builds it. She's writing software, right? It's different. It is different. How we build is going to be different, but software development, those that are writing software development, that number is going to keep increasing. And the last thing I'll say to you is that if you haven't gone down the rabbit hole of AI assisted development, I would definitely encourage you to do that. Even if you decide, you know what, I don't really want to do software development anymore, and you're still a knowledge worker, these tools still apply. Quick example. Steve and I are getting ready for this huge request for a proposal for this huge software project. And this particular exercise had nothing to do with code. We were filling out spreadsheets and getting documents together. But because on the back ends of these things, right, we're just dealing with text, or these things, or these Excel spreadsheets can be manipulated with code. We just went to Cursor and we had conversations with Cursor as if we were coding. But hey, I need you to fill out this spreadsheet for me. Here's a brain dump of what we think about this project. Let me ask questions like, tell me, what do you think about this? I want to challenge you here. What do you think I'm missing? We're having conversations back and forth with the AI about this project and what we're going to do. And we're like, okay, well, we don't want to fill out this spreadsheet because this is dumb. We need you to fill it out. Take everything that we've said in this conversation about these requirements and what we're going to do. I want you to fill out the spreadsheet. It was the most satisfying spreadsheet I've ever worked on because I didn't have to touch a cell. So even if you don't want to do coding, right? Like I said, you're doing knowledge work. These tools, they may be branded for developers, but anybody can use them. If you're working with Excel and Word and PDF and all those kinds of things, you can take advantage of this stuff right now. So that's it. That's all I got. All right. Would anybody have any questions about anything? If I don't know, I won't make something up. I won't hallucinate. Yes, sir.
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
The first question, did AI make this presentation?
Yes, it did.
I figure. My question is, I guess, it seems like we're pretty much on the edge where like autonomous agents are becoming more of a reality, and like you have to see very soon, like the AI can do the business analysis, do the code, test the code, deploy the code, do the security, test the security, make sure it's all of that end to end, like they're autonomous.
Yeah, that's definitely where where it's going, and where people are trying to get there. It's not there yet. It still needs some attention from a human. There's a guy named Steve Yegge, Yegge. If you get a chance, you should look him up. He has a project called Gastown, and Gastown, that's exactly what it's trying to do. There's a bunch of agents where different agents have different everything. So from start to finish, this is a project, I have the idea. I wanted to go through and, get the requirements and do all the coding and the testing. The AI comes back and checks with them and asks them different questions and he makes those decisions. The AI comes back and it tries to execute on that. So one of the things he always jokes and says, he says, look, I'm making it open source. You can use it. I would advise you not to use it because it's crap right now, but this is what I'm working on. So there's a few people out there that's exactly what we're trying to do.
If the AI made this presentation, how do we know this isn't just what it wants us to think?
I tell you what, this presentation came from a LinkedIn series that I did a couple of weeks ago. If you're not following me on LinkedIn, it's pretty entertaining. And what I've been doing is I decided in 2025, so January, I was like, you know what, I'm going to be more visible. I want to talk about this stuff. I want to show people kind of like what's going on. So, right, I'm usually talking about leadership. I'm talking about AI. A lot of my work has been, all right, I'm going to ChatGPT or Claude. I'm talking about this, and here's my thesis, and I have a personal story here. I need you to make this sound like me, right? And here's how I want to sound on LinkedIn. So it's my thoughts, but it's organized, by AI. So later, this was maybe 5 weeks ago now. I became convicted about just letting AI just write everything. And the reason why is because I felt myself, I was dodging the responsibility of writing because I never thought myself as a good writer, right? And I was like, nah, I can just talk my way through it. I don't want to have to write about it. I was like, no, I want to be a really good writer. So I went to Claude and I said, look, I'm going to start writing my own LinkedIn posts. And I want you to be tough on me, but be kind, right? Be kind. And I'm going through, and about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I started, writing my own posts. Before, it would take me 20 minutes, and I have the whole series mapped out. Now it's taking me an hour to make one post, and I'm going through and I'm working with Claude, and Claude was like, "Wow, what the heck are you thinking? This makes no sense." I'm like, "Look, I told you to be kind." And so I'm going through and I'm getting better, and that experience and that taste is starting to build up now. So when I created this series, this is all Brian's thoughts, where Claude is kind of like, "No, think about this. What are you trying to say here?" And I'm like, don't write it for me, just kind of guide me. And so this presentation is a collection of those 4 posts from that week. Now, what I'm not interested in graphic arts and design. And so I told it to just, hey, create images for me. So it did that. But these are all Brian's thoughts, but the images are not mine creating. Yeah. Any other questions? Awesome. Cool. Right. But yeah, if anybody later on wants to talk about AI and how to get into coding with AI, you can definitely hit me up. Look for me on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find, but I love talking about this stuff. Yeah, and thank y'all so much for coming out. Kenny, thank you so much for keeping this going. And this is super important. So I'm glad you've been doing this for all this time.
Like that. I'm glad to have you. Appreciate you being here. Let me stop this stream.